Hey everybody, Jem Schofield here with the C47 and another episode of Random Acts of. I'm here in beautiful Oregon. Weather could not be nicer. And actually today what I'm going to do is take a trip up to the tech lab here at the school because they have a whole VR thing set up. And I'm going to go see my friend Dylan, who runs it, and check some things out. Admittedly, while I've done a bunch of research and stuff on VR, I don't have a lot of experience with it. And I'm really trying to sort out for myself kind of what I think about it in terms of filmmaking. We're in early days here. I think it's obvious that it has great application for certain things like this. Vlogging, I think it has great application for things like immersive environment type of applications. But I'm really not sure about where it fits in terms of storytelling. And that's really, for me, what I want to sort out. There's obvious issues with, well, three things for me. Number one is lighting and seeing lights. And I think we're going to have to think about lighting with practicals or things that look like practicals. Crew, number two, and crew not being in the shot. And also what actors are doing when they are not there. So there's going to be a lot of doors potentially, or people are really going to have to be directed to be doing things when they're not doing something. And then the third one right now is resolution, and making sure there's enough resolution, which there really isn't, to map to an entire VR space. So let me go up to the lab, check things out, and we'll see what I find out. That's Dylan.
Hello.
And we're going to go and first talk a little bit about VR, and then we're going to check this thing out.
One of the things we have is we got 4 virtual reality headsets for students to use.
Yeah.
And they're going to be doing, we've had 3 virtual reality projects already done by students.
Are they shooting, or are they or are they basically creating their spaces?
They're creating their spaces. They used a system called Unity.
Which is a gaming engine.
Right, yeah. And
okay.
It's very, very easy to create virtual reality stuff. It's literally checking a box. And you check a box, and now it will work for virtual reality, yeah.
And how about programming?
Yeah, they did all the programming for it, too.
And it's what language does it use?
C#.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think what I'm wondering is, where does this go when we create stitched real environments?
Yeah, well, with that kind of thing, you just have the challenge of how do you make the current existing lighting that's present in your scene as effective as possible,
right?
Without supplementing with something else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, without, because you're not going to be able to have a whole lighting kit behind you, where because they'll just turn around and say,
yeah, you can't have C stands and light stands and all of that kind of stuff.
So you really have to make extremely effective use of the lights that are in your scene.
Practical lighting and stuff like that.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I'm thinking that things like China balls and Chinese lanterns and things like that work really well, because they can be in a shot,
right,
or you can see them sometimes, but they create nice soft wrap light.
Right.
So that's one thing which is a concern, and sort of how to get around the challenges of using practical lighting but getting exactly what you want in terms of a look and a feel in a 360-degree space.
Yeah.
The second thing that's of concern to me is cast and crew.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're taking it beyond the idea of sort of vlogging and just sort of putting somebody in a space, and you now want to tell a story.
Right.
And I watched a video recently where they just sort of did this thing outside with a bear and everything else, and people had to hide behind cars and things like that.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? And are those things that you're discussing already with people, or
We're
is it
starting to discuss it, especially down in the media lab.
Yeah.
Talking with guys who are interested in creating this kind of content.
Right.
And it's tough. You have to. I mean, where do you put all your crew, because you can't really have them in the shot.
We saw in Avatar sort of the beginnings of motion capture, a lot of the stuff that Andy Serkis does, and then putting people into worlds.
Right.
And then that's not a virtual reality experience, but it seems like the quality of the world that's being created in a movie like Jungle Book is where we need to get to if we're going to create virtual worlds that people can go into and it feels realistic to them.
And that's where something where you can add the CGI to something that was shot traditionally.
Yeah.
And after, you know, because you could shoot something and, you know, well enough that you could then take it into the computer and create that created virtual world that still feels like it was shot live right there.
Yeah.
You know, and you'd be able to create it at any resolution that you need to. I mean,
and that's the problem, is the actual photographing of the real world right now is also limited in terms of resolution.
But the thing you do have to remember is that the computer that's running it has to be able to deal with a 4K resolution without any hiccups.
Yep.
Hiccups in VR, really bad. They really break the immersion, and it actually can induce motion sickness. So
Interesting.
You really want it to be smooth. Also, another thing to keep in mind is that VR runs at 90 frames a second as a minimum.
Seriously?
Yes.
And we're talking serious GPU power then.
Yeah. In fact, my computer is a beast, and it's not even that old of a computer, and my computer meets the bare minimum of computer requirements.
And this is at 1080 that you're pushing it usually.
Well, I mean, well, with the Oculus, it's a 1080 by 1200 screen.
Right.
But
are the worlds that they're normally processing 1920 by 1080 or?
Yeah, I mean, well, you don't really think of it in that way. You just think of it as, and well, with games and stuff like that, usually you're just thinking of like quality settings, versus like resolution, because the effective resolution is just whatever the headset.
But it is a problem when we talk about shooting it in the real world with a VR camera.
When you're talking about that, so your computer has to be able to deal with, 4K video, really smooth. But on top of that, a lot of times you're having to deal with the problem of how much space does it take up on your computer.
All right, so now I'm excited to try this stuff.
Okay, good.
So let's go ahead and do that. I'll keep rolling camera and
sure. Well, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you what this is from scratch here. This is basically a camera. It's an infrared camera.
Yep.
It's not an RGB camera, so the amount of bandwidth that it needs is actually much lower than you would have like with a webcam.
Okay.
It's a 1080p camera. This is what tracks where you are.
Okay.
Like this is what sees, and I'll actually show you once we get this plugged in. This right here actually has embedded infrared LEDs all over it. So if you're facing away from the sensor camera, it still knows exactly where you are and how you're oriented, and it's tracking the orientation of those infrared LEDs as well, so that it knows how this headset is oriented. Not to mention that there's a lot of hardware in the headset itself that tracks its own orientation. Just like your phone can tell how you're tilting it.
Yeah, I got it.
This can tell how it's tilted. Another thing it has is this slider switch to adjust the interpupillary distance, which is also called the IPD.
Yep.
And it's literally just the distance in millimeters between your pupils, which is different for every person.
Yep.
And it makes a big difference in VR. So when you slide this, it moves the lenses back and forth.
Got it. Do you want me to turn the lights off now?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Probably good.
All right.
So how does that feel? Does it feel comfortable?
Yeah, it's fine.
It should feel pretty comfortable. You shouldn't feel like a lot of pressure on your cheeks.
Yeah, no, there's a little pinch here, but I don't care about that.
Okay.
That doesn't matter.
Good. And then adjust the headphones to where they adjust up and down and
rotate. They're where they need to be.
Okay, good. So how is that horizontal lines are nice and clear?
I'm just going to do a little, that's good. I see a little light creeping in here.
A little bit of a nose gap.
Yeah.
Which actually can be useful when you're trying to make sure you don't stumble into something.
Got it.
All right, so I'm gonna fire up an experience here.
Not much over here.
Yeah, that's like a living diorama.
Yeah, see, that's weird. So this is where I think that spaces that are of adequate size.
Yep.
And then also mapping, right? So isn't there going to be the potential opportunity to say, oh, we can have a ramp in the space, but there'll be a physical ramp.
Yeah.
And that will happen, right?
Yeah.
Showdown. Uh-oh. Yeah, I'm cool. Wow. That's where Marvel can go for
Yeah.
sure. That was ridiculous. That was
Yeah.
so cool. And just the camera move, so that you can go
Right.
and look in, and you just
So-
want to look up at things and
Yeah, but that's an example where the camera's moving.
yeah,
But you notice how slowly it was moving?
yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That was
And
cool.
so that's an example where you can have motion in the camera,
Yeah,
but notice that you're the one controlling where you're looking versus,
yeah.
you know.
That was cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Crazy, huh?
Amazing.
Yeah. And it's not, you can't describe it to someone and have them get it.
No.
You know, it's just not any way to do that.
Trippy.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. You have
Uh,
to experience it.
I think this VR thing has potential, kid.
I agree.
So I'm excited now, and so let's just zoop right up there. So there you have it, another episode of Random Acts Of, and now my head is going for VR. Thank you very much, Dylan.
You're welcome.
All right. Okay, so just to wrap up this episode on VR, pretty interesting afternoon, and Dylan and that experience definitely got me thinking about other stuff related to all of this in terms of how this translates not only into experiences but also into stories. I think the most obvious for me was for things like Marvel films, and I could see, especially in the Showdown experience, that being something that if we went to go see a movie like The Avengers, we would see in something like that. But it also got me thinking about other stuff, and I think it's probably time for me to at least go and buy an inexpensive virtual reality camera and start experimenting with this stuff. Maybe before I go to Scotland, maybe not. But please subscribe to the channel if you like this content. I'm going to be doing one every week. And part of this content is going to come from here, but I'd really love some feedback and for people to subscribe and to give me comments about the types of topics that they would like me to talk about. Hopefully you learned something today. I definitely did. And I'll see you guys next time on Random Acts Of.